Heads up, female leaders, executives, and entrepreneurs. We have just opened enrollment for our next Renegade Accelerator. You can head to renegadeaccelerator.com to check out all of the information and apply.
One woman getting discouraged in such an important industry right now, it brings down women everywhere. And so you have to keep going. So if you're going to do this, commit.
I'm Amy Jo Martin. Welcome to the Why Not Now show. You know that thing you've been thinking about doing? Yeah, that one. Why not now? Have you ever actually taken the time to ask yourself, what's stopping me? Let's talk it through. This is your chance to give that idea the attention it deserves and take action. Each episode, I have a chat with a fascinating person, from entrepreneurs to athletes, celebrities, my parents, rocket scientists, and all walks of life. We talk through a critical time when they've asked themselves, why not now? We dissect that day or even that moment, step by step.
Jessie Draper is on the show today. You're in for a treat. Jessie is a venture capitalist. She's a mother of 3 boys, and she started actually in entertainment. So she's now the founder of Halogen Ventures, and she's been named or dubbed one of the 50 most connected women in America. She is definitely one of those individuals that I go to and I look to when I am navigating something around investing or thinking through how we can further democratize access to deal flow, democratize access to the flow of capital, because she's been there. She's been in the game for a while, and she knows what she's doing. She has the results to prove it. So Jessie has more than 70 companies in her portfolio, companies you've heard of, from, The Skim to even Carbon 38 and various companies that have been acquired by companies such as Twitter, Walmart, Procter & Gamble. So this is a successful operation that she's been running at her firm, and she sees it all. She hears it all. We talk through some of the solutions that we see helping in terms of accelerating access to capital and deal flow and increasing the number of female investors out there, which I'm extremely passionate about. You may have heard of Jessie Draper from an article that did go viral that she wrote, and it was titled, "Investing in Women Isn't a Effing Charity." And I encourage you to take a peek online and just Google that if you want to read through and get her point of view, and I could not agree with her more on that. This is a wide-ranging conversation. We talk through how she got her start, the challenges in getting into this vertical and into this focus area for her, as well as just even our own limiting beliefs that hold us back. You look at someone like Jessie and you think, wow, they must just have pure confidence. And we all still have that play a role in our world. It's all about how we deal with it, right? And how we overcome. Jessie and I also talk about being mothers and the struggle with the juggle and with the travel and running a company and operating in a capacity that isn't always easy. She's very passionate about changing the game of childcare and what we can do to shift dynamics and resources and infrastructure to make it more conducive to families. And what's kind of fun is Jessie and I realized we were both going to be in a similar proximity about a week after we recorded this. And sure enough, we got to meet up in person and had an event and got to talk about, the state of the union with women in investing and funding. So this is a topic we both have a strong passion for, and we will continue the conversation. But without further ado, here is Jessie Draper. I took copious notes, and I imagine you will too. Jessie, welcome to the Why Not Now show. Thank you so much for being with me here today. And in the spirit of Why Not Now, let's hop in. Can you tell me about a time when you had a big decision to make and you had to ask yourself, why not now?
I mean, I can think of so many. And when I think of big decisions, I mean, the things that come to mind, one, when I launched my career into venture capital, I was feeling like a fraud and I was coming from entertainment. I was a former entrepreneur and I ran this tech talk show back in 2008, 2009. And I thought, I know entertainment, I know technology, but for some reason, even though I'm seeing these incredible deals, and I think in the back of my head, I always knew I was going to raise a venture capital fund, I didn't feel like I could do it because I didn't see any women out there like myself. And so I asked myself that question probably exactly and was like, why am I not doing this? Like, why am I not jumping into VC? I'm helping. I would find these female run companies and they'd pitch the show. Sometimes I'd say, you're too early for the show, but I love what you're doing. Can I help you? And I'd find them investment. And some of these companies were, Jen Hyman from Rent the Runway and Paperless Post. And, I had Jessica Alba on the show when she was starting Honest Company. And I look back and I think, God, if only I'd invested in all of those back then. But then, I shifted and I said, I talked to a couple of friends. I actually have this really great lean in group. We're probably one of the only lean in groups from Sheryl Sandberg's kind of book that continued to meet forever. And they were like, why wouldn't you do this, Jessie? And sometimes you need those colleagues, that support system and to kind of show you the mirror and be like, wait, yeah, like I know what I'm doing. I don't know why I haven't gone to raise it. So I took that jump and I went out and I raised my first fund by pitching these guests that I would have on my show. And that's probably the first thing that comes to mind in terms of like more tough decisions that I have to make daily. I was mentioning, we just went through the SVB crisis. And that's one of those things you have to be like, it's a very different type of why not now. And I have to move literally now. And on Thursday, I was like, we need to get our money out of the bank. This is really crazy. And, when you hear bank run, you need to get your money out of the bank. We couldn't get it out of the bank. Then we had to make this whole decision on, okay, what do we do? What do we do for our portfolio companies? We have 70. I found out over 50% of them banked at SVB. A lot of their money was still locked up. And now it seems like everything's okay, but we're all still dealing with the aftermath. We ultimately all got our money out, but I had to make these very quick calls. I had to give advice to my portfolio when I'd never been through a bank run. And I had to put together best practices. Hey, you guys, in the next 24 hours, you should be planning on opening new accounts at other banks. From here on out, we will always have 2 to 3 banks per company. You need to be ready to sit there in front of your computer and try to wire out your money from SVB as soon as possible. Everyone's like, the government came to our rescue. But there was this moment where I was like, I'm trusting the government to sort through my bank accounts that are a lot of which were uninsured. Roku had 400 million of uninsured capital in there. Many venture funds had 2-3 billion in there. We had much less, but it wasn't all insured. And I'm like, I'm just getting going as a venture fund. This is terrible. So those were decisions I had to make in the second. So hopefully those are 2 examples of different types of why not now, but a very important question to ask yourself regularly.
Those are great examples. You've got the big genesis of starting, but then also this current modern day. I was at South by Southwest actually with one of your partners this weekend, and
Ashley. It was fantastic.
It was great meeting Ashley, and the whole SVB, was almost real time play by play with everyone going through it together. And there was a really interesting anecdotal story that I can't wait to kind of talk about. But before we get there, let's go back to 2008, 2009-ish era. That's when I started my first company too. I had left the NBA and met Tony Hsieh, who introduced me to your father, actually. And it was similar in that, who am I to do XYZ? And it ends up being, why not now? Why not me? It's one of those things where the echo chamber that we're in really does matter as well. You mentioned this group of women that were like, no, you actually can do this. And that brings me to that point of what I call the 10% edge. So even if, something's new, you did know a lot more. You had all these, you had the calculus, you know what I mean? You knew the information of these female founders. You knew that they needed money. You knew where to go get money. You probably grew up with a lot of, osmosis with your father's, career too. So would you say, does that ring true to you? Like when you look at all the female founders you've invested in, their origin story, was there a lot of, I had 10% edge, or I didn't, like Jessica Alba, she wasn't exactly an entrepreneur, however, and I realized she may not have been an investment, and she's been on the show too, but she talked about imposter syndrome.
Yeah. I mean, I think you always have imposter syndrome. I can even tell you recently, and just to give everyone background, my father's a venture capitalist, but I'm the first female venture capitalist in line. So I didn't go into venture capital because I thought, oh, there's no women doing this. Like it's all I know, but there's no women doing this. And so I went into entertainment and kind of followed in the footsteps of my aunt, who was a successful actress of the time, and then realized what I knew was technology. And I combined these two worlds during those early days of like the blogosphere. And, we were one of the first companies to partner on video content with like Forbes.com and Mashable. And I was like, anywhere I could find eyeballs, we were getting millions of views on like gas station, like kiosks, and in Denny's restaurants, like my gas station attendant used to be like, oh, this is you. But it was like before people understood the whole like subscription model quite yet. And it was just a different time. And also definitely before the most recent female empowerment movement. But yeah, I think in terms of imposter syndrome, it still happens to me. And I have to talk myself out of it. Actually, recently, we're raising our third fund right now. And so I'm pitching hundreds of investors all the time. And it's funny, I always say like, there's always 1% of pitches when you're raising a fund that just, they're just either awful people, they're mean, they've never fundraised. And it's just like, you leave there feeling like you got hit by a train. For the most part, fundraising is pretty fun. You're meeting with really interesting people. I'll have a meeting with like Diane von Furstenberg, and I'll be like, I don't even care if she invests or not. I just had a one-on-one with Diane von Furstenberg, but there's this 1% of the meetings that just suck. And I had one of those fairly recently, and it was a bizarre situation. I had my whole team on the call. I hadn't even gotten out our deck yet. And we're on Zoom. And this guy is like, do you know what an investment period is? And I said, yeah, ours is 3 to 4 years. We deploy over 3 to 4 years. And he's like, you don't know what it means. You don't even know what that means. Like, that's a very important venture capital term that you clearly don't understand. And I was like, my whole team was like, so taken aback. We were just like, what is this guy's deal? And so I haven't even opened my deck and he's grilling me on terms. And this is like also, I see the world through gender lens. And this is definitely a gendered thing. Like, he's grilling me on terms. I'm held to a much higher standard. To give you like a completely other vision, you look at the FTX guy, he got a lot more money, but $150 million check from Sequoia while he was playing a video game. I mean, I think I'm sitting here being grilled on terms, and this guy was playing a video game and he got the money, and I'm being held, and I have a real track record, and I'm, very transparent, and just like when you think about those things, like that's how I feel like we need to change something there. Anyway, back to my imposter syndrome. He's grilling me, and he actually made me doubt myself, where I was like, wait, I know I've had to answer this question a million times. Why am I doubting myself? And I actually had to take a breath and tell myself, I have 85 investors. I've pitched hundreds. I've answered this question a million times. So why am I doubting myself? And I took a pause and I said, I'm going to get out my deck now. And also, do you come from real estate or a different industry? Because sometimes there's different terminology. This is my third fund that I'm going into. So I've been asked this question quite often. And he kind of like stepped back a little. And when I opened my deck, my team afterwards was like, he was definitely intimidated after you took him through the deck because you clearly knew what you were talking about. But that was like a power move, I think, and it's like, that's some men feel like, I need to show that I know more than this person. And that like made me so crazy because I was like, wow, he really brought back that imposter syndrome. And I'm like deep in my career now.
Oh, I have so many things to kind of expand on there, but we have a saying. There's a renegade. She's a colonel in the army, and she's an orthopedic surgeon. And she says, if I intimidate you, raise your game. And so you clearly intimidated him after that. And I'm sure he was questioning what he was saying. But it's just that, from the get-go, you're not starting from the same place, right? And we were recently in LA having an event, and I know you're planning to join, but and something came up, but you would have seen this firsthand. Yeah. The women there are incredible, of all different industries. And as we're talking about kind of the spectrum of funding, many of them were not in this ecosystem, right? They would lean in and say, hey, I don't know what that term means. I don't even know what you're talking about. And it's like, that's okay. How would you have? Because that hasn't been your world or industry. No one taught you, or you haven't really had access. But B, no wonder we're very, careful about what we say out loud, because look at what just happened to you. You've got the, 10,000 hours of experience. And so that's what I'm hoping to shift, is more of the education and the access to just information, so we feel more empowered and make the asks. And it's fascinating to see, you're raising your third fund and you're still dealing with this. We just hired a COO. She recently exited to private equity, 9-figure deal. And because she's fairly young still, or appears to be as a female, I see the way that people interact, and it is fascinating. And then she starts talking and they're like, whoa. But I think the education is so key. What are some of the things, Jessie, that you're seeing right now that are trends, especially among female VCs? So having just been around quite a few at South by, and I know we were talking a little ahead of time, I'm seeing some things where I'm like, wait, maybe there's a smarter way that we consolidate a little more. Yeah. And you've been at this for a while. This isn't like year one. So what are some of the trends that you see that maybe you'd want to shift?
Yeah, I've been doing this. I'm going into my third fund, and it's, we're a female focused fund. So there has to be a female on the founding team of 5. And I'm so excited that I'm seeing so many women say, I want to invest in women. I'm raising a fund to invest in women. I've seen this happen now for the last 3 to 5 years, where they'll come and they'll meet with me. And I get this kind of interesting. It's like, we saw 10,000 deals last year, but we started seeing a lot of funds, like lots of funds. And we need more women managing capital. And I do think venture capital is a great place for women to break in. Unfortunately, we need more at the top too, like at the LP level, the limited partner level, who invest in us. But what I started seeing happen is I'd sit down with a potential, a female VC who's starting her fund, and she'd say, I think I'm going to raise $5 million. And I'd be like, go for it, but raise 10, because you can't do a whole lot with 5. Go raise 10. And, I'd kind of give her my advice. She'd come back to me 6 months later. This is really hard. I've raised $500,000. And I think I'm just going to stop there. And I'm like, you cannot stop. Like, 1, it does women everywhere a disservice. 2, it's a grind. Like, I'm fundraising right now. It's just like, I call it like getting through the meetings, and just keep meeting people, keep meeting potential investors. You cannot stop. You will find the money. You just have to have like a million meetings. It's a true numbers game. But I want to, 1, encourage these women to just like go raise that 10 million, 20 million, whatever dollar fund. Keep going, grind through these meetings. Don't get discouraged, but you can't stop at $500,000, because what that does is it's taking checks away from me and my peers, and it's not making as big an impact as we all need to make. And so I've been thinking, how can we all team up. Like we've thought, oh, do we go raise more money? And then we invest in a whole bunch of female focused funds because a rising tide lifts all boats? Or is there another way we can all work together? But, I look at it, and this is like me on my soapbox, but it's like one woman getting discouraged in such an important industry right now, it brings down women everywhere. And so you have to keep going. So if you're going to do this, commit, like go raise the money, have the hundreds of meetings. So I think that's a trend I'm seeing that is, I'm excited about the women starting these funds, but I'm discouraged and bummed that they're giving up. And so just know, like, when you go into this, you just have to, it's a grind. So I don't know. I mean, Jo, I feel like we should come up with something fantastic here because it's broken. It's kind of broken for emerging managers, whether you're female or not. Typically these LPs, these pensions, these institutions, they're all investing in the top 5 funds in Silicon Valley. And despite this FTX disaster that everyone invested in, I don't know why they're still looking to those funds only. And they don't have enough capital for these emerging managers. So I am seeing more, like right before this, I was on a call with someone who's trying to start an emerging managers fund of funds because of this problem. And I'd love to see more people, women, raising capital at that level, investing in funds like mine, because that's where I see the disconnect. And, there's also a major issue so there's these institutional advisors. So I'm not going to name any of them, but sometimes I do. But they manage billions of dollars of capital in the world. They manage all the endowments, all of the pension funds. And it's basically like all of these different institutions in different locations are managed by the same 20 advisors, most of them based in New England. And I always think, wow, why don't we just blow that up? What if we shined a light on where all this capital was going? Because I know it's all going, 98% of it's going to those same 5 funds. And so there's something really broken there. We need more women in the CIO seats, making the decisions about where the capital is going. But also we need diversity of thought. And how do you have diversity of thought if you have 20 advisors all located in the same piece of the United States, making these decisions for venture funds across the country? And so I don't know, I have all these wild and crazy ideas, but I'm like, what if you manage over, $1 billion, $4 billion of capital, which you definitely have enough capital to hire in-house and make the decisions yourself. And let's say it's like University of Arizona's endowment or something, which I have no contact with. I have no idea what theirs looks like. But
I went to ASU, by the way, and I wouldn't say that I'm in tight, but I
maybe I was picking up on that.
But I'm picking up what you're putting down the strategy wise. Yeah.
But say it's Arizona and then they're being managed by these guys out there. What if we said, hey, Arizona, you have $4 billion, hire in-house, hire someone from Arizona. The money will inevitably go more into the ecosystem of Arizona, which is also a really positive thing, versus to these same 5 funds in Silicon Valley, who I work with and I love, and they come in my deals after me, but it's just they're not even venture capitalists anymore. They're all now private wealth management groups, they're RIAs, they're in PE, they're writing, $50 to $350 million checks. That's not even in my playing field. So that capital needs to be redistributed. Anyway, I could go on all day about this.
I could too. I mean, we might have to actually have another follow-up session, but I think, so what I love is we just fit really well together because Renegade, we're all about getting more women's seats on cap tables, board seats, and stages in terms of being able to further expand and grow thought leadership, voice of authority, not necessarily just for the sake of doing it. And what I know as serving on a board, specifically as an investor, and I was the only female, and it's a fertility company. I'm like, whoa. I realize how important it is, even on the corporate side. You mentioned CIOs, and it is really having women in all of those decision-making processes because, we're about education around this space and democratizing access to deal flow, but also help flow of capital through special purpose vehicles, we're not launching a fund. It's more about getting women comfortable with doing while learning in a safe place, right? And then they can decide if they want to continue to grow their own portfolio. But what happens is it's like, I was talking to this woman, she's a C-level executive for a large corporate brand this week, and I was explaining the same takeaway from South by, where I was listening and at dinners with all these female venture capitalists from all over the globe, but most of the funds are relatively, not all of them, but most of them are relatively on the smaller side. And I'm like, are you competing for the same LPs? And is this going to make a dent? What about consolidation and just economies of scale and buying power and leverage? And just, this is going through my mind as a non-VC woman. And I'm like, maybe I just don't know, because it's not really my seat. But I sit very closely to those seats. And I think that's where it's like we have to reinvent what this looks like across the entire system. But this woman, this C-level tech executive, said in physics, you think about a rock, or you think about the flow of a stream, and it's fastest in the middle, right? And so the guys have had their boats for a long time in the middle of the river, and they're flowing and it's going. And then we have all these small pebbles on the sideline, on the banks that are, a lot of these female firms, not all of them, but we really do need to get to the middle of the river. And in some cases, it's also partnering and leveraging for sure. This isn't a pendulum swing of let's all just try and do this on our own. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
So that mechanism or strategy is yet to be fully defined. But when you said the first 5, the founding team, there needs to be a female of the first 5 of the founding team. Can you explain that to me? Because does that broaden things a little more? It doesn't have to be a co-founder, or?
I love this question because I am so frustrated right now where we are in our fundraising process, which normally you can't talk about publicly, but I can because we were registered differently this time with the SEC. And I'm glad I can, because I'd like to tell you all about this. It is making me absolutely crazy. So I pitch my fund. We say there has to be, and I basically disclaim it in the beginning, because I'll say, yeah, there has to be a female in the founding team of 5. Let me tell you, I have 70 companies, and I think 1 where the female is beyond co-founders. Like, this is just a non-issue. It's not an issue. We saw 10,000 deals last year. Women are starting companies. However, men control the majority of the capital, and we love men. We just need them to work with us more and deploy more capital into female-founded businesses. And the more women who make money by, being in the C-suite of a startup and building it to $1 billion business, and then having a great payday, they will inevitably invest that back into the female ecosystem. So this is the easiest way to really manage this enormous pay gap. So I have been going and, pitching my fund, and I was recently at a private wealth conference. And this is just an example of what happens when I pitch men, which is almost every day. I'm at a private wealth conference, which is 99% men, and I'm presenting my fund, and I think it's going pretty well. And I spend 30 minutes answering questions, not on my track record or the fact I have a company doing 900 million that's about to go public, or that UBS led the last round of one of my company's fundraises, or that I have a company that is, just doing so well in Target that they're doubling down. I mean, not on my track record, but so what if a guy works there? What if a guy pitches you? How do you see all the best deals if you're only investing in women? I spent 30 minutes answering these questions. The good thing is, after I answered these questions that were the biggest waste of time, I got, 12 or 13 guys who were pretty interested in investing in my fund. But I'm look at my companies, look at my track record. So I've started to be I think I'm going to put all the female focused stuff in the back, so that it's look at my track record first. And then I can say we have 100% female founded businesses, which can be a fun little surprise at the end, because like, that's crazy to me. It's like, I don't even understand it. And I'm like, just because you aren't seeing female focused deal flow doesn't mean it's not there. It means you need to go into new networks and, make sure that you're thinking about women in diversity. And, also because we went off of the traditional path of venture capital, and we, don't only take Stanford and Harvard student CEOs. We said, hey, our bucket is women. We're looking for women. And we got such a unique diaspora of founders. We have over 50% minority-led companies just because we were looking for women and the best businesses. So really, like, you look for the best businesses and you say, it's just like a different type of deal flow. And I think that you see these VC guys who, again, like, they're not bad people. I think you just have to get them to think differently, and they share deal flow with the same 5 or 10 VCs. And then the same 5 or 10 VCs are on the cap table over and over and over and over. And there's no room for others. So to your point, like, I do think we need to collaborate more as women, but I also think we need to collaborate more with men. So yes, so that's my my 5 founder disclaimer, but it's really a non-issue, and it's really so that I don't have to answer 30 minutes of questions like that.
We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. Hi, everyone. If you are digging this podcast, please do us a favor and subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes. It just takes a moment and it means a ton to us.
Something Mark Cuban once said when I was like talking about this gender and investment conversation, he's like, I see green, right? He's like, I don't see pink or blue. I see green. I see the business opportunity. I'm like, okay, we could go a lot of different directions with that, but at least he's clear. So I was on this panel at South by, and 3 guys and me, and it was specifically focused on sports and investing. And 2 of the guys, so it was Lance Armstrong and Darren Rovell, were talking about a deal that one of them cut the other into, kind of as an aside. And I interrupted him. I was like, hold up. Can we actually talk about what just happened there? Because if it weren't for, gosh, I think it was a happy hour 10 years ago where a couple guys were doing that, my friends, and I was like, hey, they were texting with outsiders who were cutting them into some opportunity. And I was like, what are you doing? And started asking the questions. I wouldn't have gotten in the loop if it weren't for that. And I said, hey, can I get in? What does that even mean? I don't even know what you're talking about. And then they said, sure. And it became a safe place to ask all my questions about these terms and how it worked. And like, how much money did I need? I always thought you needed millions of dollars to invest, right? And so that process has allowed then me to open up to more women, right? Just kind of getting in the loop. And I don't think it's almost education. It's not so much, hey, we've been kept out. It's just been, no, we just haven't been in proximity, right? So I kind of go through this point and then point to Lance, who has partnered with Melanie Strong in a venture capital firm, and how much power that can bring to be able to have a man and woman, whatever the calculus is that's going to move the needle forward. But it could be like not even leading with the fact that it's female focused. Everybody's going to know that, right? Yeah, for you, totally. Like, look at your portfolio is stacked, and it's, how many exits have you had? Like 10?
I had 10. Yeah. And then we have I think we're going to have a company go public soon, which I can talk about because it's called Baby List. And I need all of you to tell every single person, specifically men in finance, about how awesome they are, because they're just starting to market now. And I want everyone to hear how awesome they are, but they're the largest baby registry. They're doing so well. And they're the company doing 900 million GMV. It's incredible. And people, actually, that's my favorite thing to tell all these rooms, because you see the jaws just drop. They're like, wait, what? A baby registry company is doing 900 million. I'm like, yeah. Are you paying attention now?
Right. And don't even, it's almost like just put the number out there and then tell them what it is after, right? It's like we got a Trojan horse everything, which is fine if that's going to get us further quicker. But What exactly do you want listeners to do to help support this? So they're likely going to go public, you said. So what can we do?
So just tell everyone about this company, especially if you know anyone in finance. That's, we're marketing, which means, they need to get in front of those sort of financial crowds, because when you go public, you need a whole bunch of large financial players to basically invest and buy a lot of the shares. And so you go through this whole period of marketing your fund before they've filed the S1 to go public. So this is a time where we can talk about it. And so just use Babylist, talk about Babylist, talk about how they're doing 900 million and all they're doing is their technology and they're selling baby stuff. And I think also that just helps women as a whole. We're really focused on investing in this category that we've defined as future of families, and that's childcare, ed tech, anything in and around the home. And I get a lot of questions like, first we were saying we want to solve childcare, and some of even my investors were like, is this a big enough opportunity? And I'd be like, it's 500 billion, but challenge accepted. And we went and did a study and found that this whole category, future of families, is a $7.5 trillion opportunity. And then we get questions like, well, what are the comps in the childcare space? Like, what are the comparisons? Like, what have been the big successes? We're building that now because it's been so forgotten as an industry, and we really want to solve it, but it's also going to be an enormous moneymaker, mostly for women, because mostly women solve these real problems with family and childcare. And so, I think just talking about how investing in this type of opportunity is such a great thing, whether it's Babylist or, we have a company called We Care that has 55,000 in-home vetted childcare facilities, and they're like the tech overlay across the country. And, their technology servicing these smaller daycares that make it more affordable for people. They're the most affordable option I found for childcare between 0 and 6. And that's a place we really want to target. But it's nice to be able to talk about Babylist. And then, we have Sheila Marcello is one of my investors from care.com. And that's a great comp too. Care.com went public. Now I think they're private again. But that's all we have. So I'm looking forward to many more exits in this category so that I can be like, look, it's an underfunded opportunity, which means outsized returns. And so think about it like a real business versus philanthropy, if you will.
This is a perfect segue. When we hopped on, we were both talking about the fact that it happens to be St. Patrick's Day, and we're both waking up and saying, okay, we've got children.
I don't know if they can see us, but you're in red and I'm in green, and we look like Christmas. So we're just representing all the holidays.
Yeah, why not? Or for me, it was Valentine's a couple, not too long ago, where I'm scurrying saying, oh, getting the house and everything ready for the day for our kids. So I've been on your podcast, and thank you so much for tying this all together. I mean, the future of families thesis that you have going on, which is really interesting because it does broaden, and it's so much bigger than when we get super narrow. But then the work that you're doing, the advocacy to bring more information and education around childcare and innovating that whole dynamic. So when we hopped on, we were talking about just, this dirty word and the BS of balance and being on the road a lot. What would you say is something that's been helping you lately with reconciling and recalibrating as you switch gears?
On the road, I've literally been on the road. It sounds like you have to. It's hard to switch gears. I was telling you, but this morning I woke up and I read my little news in the morning at 4 a.m. before the kids get up, and I'm reading it and I'm like, oh my God, it is St. Patrick's Day. And I literally ran downstairs, threw everything green on our table, and was just and that's all I got today. I'm doing my best as a mom, but I'm a working mom and I can't remember everything. And also there's a lot of holidays. Do we have to do something for all of them? But it was great. My kids were like, did you see what a mess the leprechaun left? It is so messy. And they took all the green stuff. I try to shift gears. I think something that helps me right now is every morning when I'm home, and I've been gone for a little bit, but we don't do dinner together all the time because in VC, I feel like you're always at networking events. And they eat a little earlier, and I try to be there when I can. But I do breakfast with my kids every single day. And we've actually had their teacher, their teacher's like, every day I ask your kids what they eat for breakfast. And every day they tell me like eggs or pancakes or like something amazing. And I'm like, no, we literally make breakfast with them every single day. And, it's early, like we make breakfast at like 6:30. But it's this special time that I get to spend with them. And it makes me feel like while I can't cook every meal, I will cook eggs and bacon and sausage and like whatever, and make it kind of fun and special in the morning. And it makes them really excited to get up in the morning. And not everyone has that like capability, but that grounds me, like having that when I get back in my routine where I'm making the kids breakfast in the morning. And it also just makes me feel like I did something for them today.
I love that. So it's very similar, maybe not 6, but it's an anchor of your day, starting your day too, when you're at your best versus scurrying along and then saying, oh, I got to get home for dinner. And maybe that's not the best energy that you have for reserve. So it's like giving them your best out of the gate. I love that. A couple of rapid fire questions and we'll wrap up if you're game.
Always game. I'm game for anything. Amy Jo, I'm all game. And also everyone has to listen. She mentioned she was on my podcast. You guys have to listen. She has such an amazing story on my podcast, Mommy Mental.
Yes. Thank you. All right. What keeps you up at night?
I mean, you guys have heard so much about it here today on this podcast, but there are days where like the misogyny in the world really weighs me down. And I do love men. I have 3 little boys that I'm raising as very empowered boys. I grew up with a really strong dad and a great relationship with my dad. But I do feel it sometimes, and it does exist. And that's something that I actually have to like talk myself out of and not feel like I have to, like, I don't want to have that weight of the world on me, but that keeps me up at night. Like, what more can I do to like push equality forward? But that also gets me up in the morning, right? It's like, I'm ready to do this. Like, what can we do? Like, how do we get more women out there in the working world, et cetera? That keeps me up at night. And then like, if I go to the doctor and the doctor says something about endometriosis or something, then I stay up all night Googling whatever they told me. I'm sure everyone has
those. Yes, those are the other types of things that keep us up at night. You're looking at you saw 10,000 decks last year, evidently. That's a lot. How do you even source and analyze?
We can't even get through them all. I mean, obviously I can't sit down and look at 10,000, but we have different ways of sourcing. For
sure. But they cross your path. What are the top 3 things you're looking for?
So the top 3 things I'm looking for would be, 1, we're early stage investors. So like first and foremost, it's the founder. Like, this founder, am I ready to go to, battle with them? This is a 10 to 15 year marathon. Are they open? Are they going to give up? Are they excited about what they're building? Are they building it for something personal? Is there like a real need for this? The second would be a product that has some sort of like proprietary technology, something surrounding this product that has like an interesting moat. Why can no one else do this and build this product like this? Why is this going to win? And then the third thing is some kind of traction. So like, is it, $1 million in revenue? But don't let that intimidate you. Is it 100,000 users? But don't let that intimidate you. Is it a research white paper that you have on why there's a need for this in the industry and why it doesn't exist? I think there's a lot of different ways to show engagement or traction or something to an investor when you're building something that's never been built before. And so those are the 3 I would look for.
I love it. Great. When you hear the word renegade, who pops into mind for you?
So many people, but I think I would probably say Cindy Eckert, who created the first female Viagra, essentially, and sold it to Valiant Pharmaceuticals, and then wasn't satisfied because they hadn't launched it. And so she wasn't afraid to sue them, and she got it back. And they basically were like, you just made $1 billion and we're going to give it back to you. And then here's 25 million more for your trouble. And she's just like so determined to get this product out there for women, because men have 26 sex drugs on the market and women can't even have one, apparently. And so she is just a force. I also think Rebecca Minkoff, who is one of our investors, both of them are investors.
Both of them have been on the show too. On this show too.
Oh, good.
I love
They're
them.
both fantastic. Rebecca Minkoff is just willing to try anything new in technology. And I think as a fashion designer and just female leader, I think that's really important. A lot of people are stuck in their kind of boxes, but she's really seen it pay off to try new things and innovate on her business. And so I do think she is just one of the most innovative, creative minds, always open to trying something wild and crazy to like get her brand out there. And I think she's just a force. So those are two who come to my mind.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Let's wrap up here. I know you need to hop. Thank you, Jessie, for everything you're doing. And I learned from you from afar, and it's been incredibly encouraging because seeing is believing. And so that means a ton. And I appreciate your time and energy. This is not the end for sure. We've got a lot of work to do still.
We do, but we're doing it.
We're doing it.
Don't let misogyny keep you up at night too. But Amy Jo, thank you so much. This is so fun. You're the greatest, and I'm a huge admirer of you. And I definitely love seeing what you're up to. And so, let me know what else we can do together, because we got to take over this world.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening to the show. Hit me up on social media to let me know what you think. I'm at Amy Jo Martin on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And I want to hear your Why Not Now moments so I can share them on the show. Just send me a note to whynotnow@amyjomartin.com. For show notes and other offers, you can visit amyjomartin.com/whynotnow. And while you're there, don't forget to sign up for my email newsletter for exclusive content and announcements. A big thanks to Rock Salt Music for all of the tunes by the talented John Coggins. And of course, a hat tip to Richard Brewer for editing and producing the show. I'll see you next time. And until then, why not now?